Hello everyone, this is Shiny Noctowls, and tonight I kind of want to do a video I've been thinking about for a wee while now, especially with the latest patch for Final Fantasy 7.4 coming out. If you guys don't know, Final Fantasy 14 is an online MMO that I've been playing for a while, and the latest expansion has been kind of been like an intersection between the Native American cultures of the Americas. So a lot of it's actually being from Latin America specifically. So a lot of Meso and South Amerindian, as it were, um, as well as intersecting with Neo Tokyo. Neo Tokyo to me is kind of like one of the areas in the game that, and I can show you some images if you want. Um, see if I can find it. Um, let's see if I can get an idea. So yeah, so Final Fantasy 14, the how they displayed the Golden City, which is essentially referencing um, kind of like a how do I describe it? It's kind of what was kind of seen as like El Dorado or the City of Gold that was spoken about in some of the Native American folklore in South America. Specifically, I think in areas like in Colombia and other areas, I think Peru as well, they're kind of referencing that image here. But what you see here is really kind of instead of like just the gold kind of like something similar to gold coins, you see kind of really technology. And to me, I feel like a lot of this technology that is kind of spoken about in uh, 14, you can also see it in the Jomon kind of inspired um, models that you see in uh, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, as it were. And why is this so important that I'm mentioning this? Well, it's because I'll try to see if I can break it down to where it makes sense, because it's a lot of information. It took me a lot of time to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together. So, if you look at the map of some of the ancestry of some of the natives in the Americas, you will see some of them were actually related to Jomon, or well, they mixed with a bunch of different people. It's like my Uncle Cherokee Japanese Herman, who looks similar to Nobu Uematsu would say. The natives didn't just only stay native, and that is true. They did mix with, as my dad would say, different waves of Asians. Kind of really like what happened in Japan, where you had the Jomon, then you had the Yayoi, then you had the Han, and then you had the Ohatsuku. You had all these different Asians coming together. Like it wasn't just like every Asian looked the same. Like, because I have a lot of people that I know, particularly Chinese and Vietnamese Americans, don't want to say all the Asians are the same, but that's not exactly how it works. And I can understand why they may say that because if you look at the DNA, particularly in China currently, it's majority Han, and I think to some extent maybe Vietnam, maybe a lot of the Vietnamese are maybe majority Han as well, even though they may not want to admit that. And maybe that's why they kind of have this more uniform idea, if you will, of why all Asians are the same. I'll see if I can pull up an image. Not Kinko, Kaya. Zumi Kaya, she's a Japanese YouTuber, and she herself, said exactly what I'm saying, or pretty much very similar, that the Japanese are really more diverse than people realize. I'll see if I can find the map here, because I should have it. Hold on. Sorry. It's gonna take me a minute because I've been thinking about doing this video for a while now, especially with the latest patch of Dawn Trail. Because I noticed in 14 the Japanese game developers are continuing to kind of intersect this kind of motif, if you will, of the indigenous Native Americans specifically, more the natives that are connected to the some of the Meso or even South Amerindian cultures, really with the almost like the Japanese technology, as if it came from a similar source. And I think that, there is truth to that. That subconsciously they are kind of showing that, even if they don't even if not all of them are consciously aware of that. Let me see if I can get this up because yeah, sorry about that. Should be able to uh, here. Perfect. Okay, so let me see if I can get this all together. So you see the DNA of the different people in East Asia, and Kaya, she did a very good job actually with this. You notice how in China, specifically northern China, which is I guess where most of the Chinese live, or a good amount of them, you see Han is really the majority of the ancestry. And then Ohatsuku, which is also connected to the um, kind of peaks with the people like the Ainu, for example, in Hokkaido, who are not only just Jomon but also Ohatsuku, which is like a Siberian group that came to Japan. I believe the Ohatsuku are actually related to the Ninvik people, the which are a Siberian group. Um, but maybe there's some connection with Yayoi as well, and I'll show that later. That there might be some intersection between maybe Ohatsuku. Maybe not entirely the same, but there might be some intersection. Maybe because of the shared ancient Northeast Asian, that could be part of it. Um, and this is kind of important to kind of really understand because so you see in northern China, I guess where most Chinese live, that's the majority of the DNA. You go to the southern part, it's still majority Han, but you start seeing a bit of a shift, a bit of a. It seems like the DNA 01, well, at least here, this is more so paternal lineage. You kind of see the Yayoi might have like a shared paternal lineage. In this case, with some people in southern China kind of connected to 01B. You see the same thing in Vietnam actually as well. Um, and so, and then Korea, you also see Han, and you see Yayoi and Ohatsuku. And I think they might even have some Mongolian, some other groups. Um, but in Japan, you see how it's really the most diverse out of pretty much all of East Asia, and at least in this map in particular, because you see the Han, the Yayoi. By the way, Yayoi, Kaya use there's another way you can reference some of the Yayoi. So sometimes I'll use Changjang. Sorry. Um, Sometimes they'll say that instead of Yayoi. It's interesting though because there are some Yayoi during the Yayoi period who did have um, a fair amount of continental East Asian ancestry, and I think that's why Kaya used Chanjiang because it's probably referencing that, the continental East Asian farmers. But there were some Yayoi that didn't really have that specific continental East Asian farmer ancestry. They did have the ancient Northeast Asian ancestry, which is what some Yayoi are. That's what their ancestry DNA is more usually typified by. So it depends, I guess maybe some Yayoi had it, some Yayoi maybe not so much. And I've always preferred saying Yayoi, at least for me, because I know some people feel more comfortable saying Chongjang. Sorry if I'm butchering that. It probably depends on the Yoyoi's ancestry. Maybe some have more of that, some have less of it. Um, I, and I think probably the Yayoi ancestry I'm connected to probably is more the ancient Northeast Asian part because um, I think that was really also what kind of was one of the defining markers of the Yayoi before the Kolfin period. And then I think Kolfin is really where it was like more so major continental East Asian ancestry. But I think the period before, like in between Jomon and Kolfin, the Yayoi period, that's where you kind of had the ancient Northeast Asian ancestry. And I think that's when also shamanism was also introduced to Japan as well, because before you had animism, which was kind of the foundation of Shinto and of kind of the spirituality of Japan. But I think the Yayoi period kind of added to that before Kofun. And so, why is this important? Well, it's interesting because some people might say, how did Japan get so technologically advanced? And I'm starting to think that really the technology that Japan has and what they showcased in Dawn Trail, really, it definitely predates the Han or the Han ethnic group from China. Uh, there's no question at this point. Um, because I think even because I've spoken to some Chinese and some Vietnamese Americans, and I knew a Vietnamese American. He calls himself Otaro, and online, and I think even he, I don't think fully grasped because like he was looking at Dawn Trail, at all the technology that was showcased in the game. I don't think he fully was able to understand the origin of it. I mean, I think he understood it, but not where it actually came from, if that makes any sense. To me, it's kind of like you go into a computer room with all these buttons, and it's kind of like, okay, I see these buttons, but where was the origin? And so that's where I'm kind of thinking that this kind of what do you call it? These kind of elements existed in Japan, long before the Han. Um, and so notice how I haven't really said Yayoi that much. And that's because for me the Yayoi were almost like the balance for Jomon. And some people may say, how's that possible? Like, aren't the Jomon like the indigenous people of Japan, and aren't they, like for example, like one of the groups like the Ainu, aren't they kind of in some people say like aren't they, um, struggling a lot? And I would say, well, and remember the Ainu are not just only Jomon, they're also mixed with Ohatsuku. And also a lot of Japanese still have Jomon ancestry. So I think what the Yayoi brought, because I think the Jomon already had the technology, at least on some level. Actually, I think of this artist. She reminds me a lot of my grandmother, Pama. She was my dad's mom. She liked coloring a lot like her. It's kind of interesting how she's also named Yayoi as well. And so I think that the Yayoi people, I watched this other Japanese YouTuber called Azumi. So instead of Izumi, it's Azumi. And I think the Azumi were one of the kind of the original clans of Japan are one of the original. They're like one of the original ancestors of the Japanese, and they might have originally been Jomon, then mixed with Yayoi and other groups. I think they were also known to be fishermen. And she talked a lot about darkness, about, and then ancient Japanese wisdom. And I noticed, I paid close attention to her. When she said ancient Japanese wisdom, I started saying, I think she's really referencing Jomon. Well, I think what she's saying is, before the Yamamoto, or before Kofen, or maybe even before Yayoi, she's referencing the kind of the original Japanese wisdom. Because really, the Japanese, whether you're Jomon, Yayoi, Ohatsuku, Han, they still all kind of blended together to make who the Japanese are today. And Kaya, she demonstrated that in her video that whether whether you have ancestry that's closer to Jomon or closer to Yayoi, you're still Japanese either way, or you're still considered Japanese, at least from the Japanese themselves. Now, maybe if you go to Korea, maybe they're a little bit different, or China, but in Japan, it seems to be kind of a well-known fact that whether you kind of cluster closer to one group or the other, you're still considered Japanese. That's at least what I kind of gather, and it makes sense because the Jomon were, they've lived. They were, to me, I kind of see them as the Native Americans, or some of the original Native Americans of Japan. Like my dad says Aborigines, but they've lived there for thousands of years, like tens of thousands, like a long, 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 long time. And so to me, that makes sense. Why it's seen that way, and and so, but I think the Yayoi were in some ways, even though um, I think of the Yayoi as like more like the crow and raven motifs of the Japanese. So kind of makes me think of like Itachi Uchiha from Naruto. He, to me, really kind of is more like that intersection between the Jomon and the Yayoi during the Yayoi period. Um, Even though, Izumi or Azumi talked a lot about darkness, I kind of see the Yayoi as kind of like if they are darkness, they're kind of like the light darkness of the Japanese. What I'm saying is, so you have the Jomon, which to me is more like sometimes can be more of the from the energy I got from Azumi, it's more like sometimes the more depressive energy that can weigh you down. Of that sometimes the Japanese might face at times. While the Yayoi is more like that light darkness, or that it's kind of like enjoying the I mean, I know some people hate rain, but the other people can see the beauty of rain, the beauty of that soothing energy coming down. And I think that's what the Yayoi kind of more that's the energy that I think the Yayoi bring, um, or the beauty that can be found in the crow and the raven. And so the thing is that um, some people, especially, I notice there's a lot of people that seem to really get angry. Like they say, we know who the real Japanese is. We know who they are, and that's usually people. And I know Meshida would probably say gaijin, but it's really people who they look from the outside and they say, um, we know who the real Japanese are. But you have to ask ourselves, do you really know, or you know, are I think what I'm saying is, because I'm going to try to see how I can break it down. Because see, if you look at the maternal haplogroups of the Japanese, and this is why sometimes I talk about the beginning seed of not only the Jomon but also the Yayoi. Notice how ever since the Jomon period, I mean, of course, you have other haplogroups like N9B, G1B, M7A that also made part of the Jomon, but one lineage kind of sticks out and kind of keeps going through the passage of time, and this one is in particular D, or what I see as the will of D, sometimes referenced in One Piece, and you can kind of look it up if you're interested. So, why is this maternal haplogroup D so important out of the others, and how does it connect to the one in the Americas? Well, you notice how, um, because maternal haplogroup D is kind of like the current main maternal haplogroup of Japan today, or one of the main ones that kind of kept going through the passage of time, and you can see that from Jomon to Japanese to Yayoi. You see, and you also see A and B as well, and A and B, they're big ones in the Americas. B is like more related to Southeast Asian, Polynesians, Hawaiians. A can be connected to like um, Eskimo or something, or to Inuit, but more than Inuit. Um, Athapascan, Danak, Tlingit. Sometimes in Mongolia, Tibet as well, other areas, Okhotsk. So you see, A and B are definitely well. A was definitely a lot smaller. It seemed like in the Jomon period, and kind of increased over time. And B had a little bit of a bigger presence, and I think that's mainly because of the Polynesian, Southeast Asian connection. But I want you to focus on D out of all of them, and why is that? Because out of all of them, I mean, of course, you got M8 as well. That's still there, but or M. But really, I think D actually descended from one of the paternal haplogroups of M eventually. But D in particular, it kept going. Like it kept going from Jomon to Japan or to Yayoi to Japan. And and I noticed too, Yayoi seemed to have a bigger, really big, had a bigger amount of A and B in general. Um, but again, because remember modern Japanese are the mix between the two groups, Jomon and Yayoi, and then also you have Han and Ohatsuku and all that. And so you see D is the main maternal haplogroup that you see in the far north and the far south. So you see it's with the Patagonians, or they will Amazon and Andean, and also Patagonians. And then you see it in the far north with the Eskimo more than Inuit. And the Eskimo can also mean those who tie snowshoes, not just those who eat raw meat. Yeah. Yeah, they didn't just eat sashimi. And then you have also the Aleuts as well, has a more of a dominant maternal group D. And so why is this D so important? Why is that maternal lineage so important, not just the paternal but also maternal? So I want you to see this one as well, because okay, so this was surprisingly these matches were both in Mexico. I didn't get deep dive matches with these, but they did show up in sample matches that I matched a wee bit with. So you see this one, you see kind of I'm probably going to butcher this, Ancient Malaysia, Obenhian, Andaman Islander, Okinawa. More than Okinawa though, Saganji, Japan, which I learned is an area north of Japan, no, north of Tokyo, excuse me. Oh, I didn't realize that late Neolithic China, Belagang, Tuan. Okay, that's important because I didn't realize this match with that sample, and I'll see if the other match does too. But no, that's really important. Avar, Hungarian Ruran, Northeast Asian, Ancient Egypt. That makes me think of Kazuki Takahashi, which my Uncle Herman, Uncle Japanese sorry if I butcher his name. No, Uncle Cherokee Japanese Herman. He's kind of been with Cherokee, North Carolina for over 40 years now. But yeah, so uh, when my Uncle Cherokee Japanese Herman saw him, he said, he looks like a Mexican. And I said, I know what you mean, but it probably just means, he has more of a specific Jomon ancestry that kind of resembles what some people would view as a Native American Mexican. And I'm sure some Jomon look different, and that's why, like, the Kaweskar, they had that maternal haplogroup D4H3 that went to Japan ever since, like the beginning of the Ice Age. Um, and that's why I'm saying, like, even the Yayoi, the beginning seeds of Yayoi were even present in Japan uh, through the maternal ancestry, if you go far back enough. Yeah, Kaweskar. And so you can see how, that lineage, this is what the Klingits would call Shukaka, or man ahead of us. So these were some of the original people that settled part of the Pacific Northwest, thousands of years ago, and also the Patagonia in the far south. And yeah, it's something to take note of because I think sometimes people think people just stay in one area, but that's not how it always works. People move around, or well, that's really what migration is. When I think of the Patagonians like the Kaweskar, it makes me think a lot of Jiraiya from Naruto. It makes me think a lot of, and also like the connection with the toads and the frogs to an extent. It makes me think a lot of Jiraiya. Yeah, and because you have Jiraiya and you have Itachi, and that's to me those two in general. They're like the Jomon and Yayoi kind of. They balance each other. You know, they're and that's the cool thing about Japan is I know a lot of people think all Japanese look the same, but that's again that's not really how it is. If you know the truth, then you'll be able to see it more clearly. Um, and I mean maybe if you go to China, maybe that's a different story, like modern day China. Maybe then they'll say, "Oh yeah, we're all the same. Yeah, we all Asian same." Maybe even Vietnam, but Japan, no, 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 no. Japan is uh, for how futuristic people think Japan is, it's kind of like the past, the present, and the future all at the same time. If you understand it closely enough, if you understand the true history, the true um yeah, no, for sure, there's no question. Um yeah, yeah. So this is my Uncle Cherokee Japanese Herman on the right, and this is Nobu Uematsu on the left. They look so much. They look so similar. I told myself they might as well be like cousins. And then also I'll show you my. I've done it in multiple videos before, but I'll show it again. This is my great grandmother Elita. This is my dad's maternal grandmother, and then Daiko Shitama, who is a Japanese woman who lived in the U.S., and they also look very similar as well. And so that's why I can kind of piece these connections together, like how it's like putting the pieces of the puzzle together, like how is it that I have family members that look similar to Japanese, and now it all kind of clicks, it all kind of comes together, it all kind of, you know, makes sense. But yeah, so then you see here, um, there's a lot of Central Asian matches here. Um, I noticed too, another thing I noticed too, some people say that some of the Central Asians or Siberians look like Japanese. And so that might also be like a connection that I'll cover, especially for the Yayoi. And that's probably it's connecting more to the ancient Northeast Asian connection because the Japanese, I looked at the DNA and it seems like they have the East Asian continental farmer ancestry connected to Han and Chanjiang that also came with ancient Northeast Asian Yayoi. Um, and it seems like the Yayoi were really they they were a blend of Jomon and ancient Northeast Asian, and this is probably why when you see this match, now it's saying more like uh, I'm probably gonna butcher it. I'll just say Coco because I know that's what the Japanese some of them connect with Coco. Coco, Mexico, and it seems like this is like um, I guess this individual lived in I guess what's now known as Oaxaca, large Mixtec Aztec city, but I don't think this individual was necessarily Aztec. No. No, because the only reason why I say that is because I'm gonna see if I can find um, closest ancient matches. Because I think there's like some matches that specifically say Aztec, and I know sometimes like people fight each other about about if the Aztecs were like Nahuas or not or whatnot. But it seems like it was a different group, like because you can see here Mayan, Az Inca, Amerindian, Aztec. It seemed like they were already a little bit closer to Meso-Amerindian. I know some people said they came from Utah, but I don't know. I think this might have been a separate individual because people were migrating everywhere. I'd have to look more into it though, but you can see here there's Saka, Avar, Hungarian Conqueror, a lot of nomadic ancient Northeast Asians for sure. And even sometimes when I look at the armor of the Avar, it reminds me a lot of the armor of the Samurai. Because again, the Yayoi, they may have had that ancient Northeast Asian ancestry that was connected to to the Ruron, which are not necessarily the Mongols, but people before the Golden Horde. These were, I think, ancient Northeast Asians, also connected to Tungzek. Um, yeah, but and they went to Europe as well, so they they went all over. They traveled. But these were before the Mongols. These were the I think they're closely related to like Tungzek. Hopefully I'm not. It makes me think of like Tengu, like Tengu, like I don't know if there's a connection, but it makes it like so it makes me think a little bit of that. Um, I don't think it's supposed to be like a bad element, but just kind of like fierce warriors. I think that they had a major a major impact. In Japan, or especially for the Yayoi. And so yeah, so you see Saka. Saka is like I think it's referencing the people connected to the Yakuts of Siberia. Yeah, so kind of this group. And the reason why I say Siberia too is because I know a lot of times people they think, for example, like they use the word Russian, but before there was a country known as Russia, it was originally Siberia, or well, it's always been that area, but it's gone through different names. And there are even some Japanese people that look very similar to some of the Siberian groups. So that's where I think maybe that could be some connection to the Yayoi, some ancient Northeast Asian, for sure. There's and so you see, yeah, so I guess even Mongol horde, some genetic connection somehow got in Yeah, so a whole bunch of different people, and so you can see here this match is most related to like North Amerindian, Altaic, Kazakh. I think it was Kazakh or some other group that they were saying that was looks similar to some Japanese like yeah, I guess it depends on the person. But yeah. Definitely Yakut for sure, there's no question. Because I think when they went further west, you know, they mixed more with some people call it West Eurasian ancestry. You know, they mixed with other people that weren't necessarily as Asian, if that makes any sense. And so that's why they started to, well, to look a little bit different. But I think as you go further west or further east, you know, like closer to like the Yakuts and those groups, it's a little bit different. You see Nineveh here too, so that's why I was interested. You know, maybe there's some overlap between Yayoi and Ohatsuku, maybe. Um, then also you got the shore people. Um, yeah, and so yeah, and so, but definitely Yakut for sure. There's no question. Yakut, I could some of the Yakut people, and you can definitely see it, especially this image here. Yeah. I don't know, it just kind of feels a little bit closer, a little bit. Um, but then Shukchi, because I think what it is, because I think in DNA they also say like Jomon, I mean Yayoi is kind of really a mix of Jomon and Ancient Northeast Asian. You can kind of see also Pima is here as well, so that's why the genetic distance is so far, because well they mix with the locals, you know. And I think Pima might have um, you know, there is like a connection to. In some cases, there can be a connection to Jomon, especially if it's like depending on the maternal haplogroup. But that's what I'm kind of thinking that that's why kind of Yayoi kind of showed up there in that mix. Oh yeah, and then I want to see if they also have the same like Tuan River that other match had, because that's important. Okay, so you can see Bronze Age Trans Baikal, sorry, Ruron, Sakoi, Greenland, and okay, and I can show that because I got that match too. Not deep dive, but just kind of yeah. I don't see the Swan River. Okay, interesting. Not in this one. Okay, but I did see it in the other one. Sakoi, Greenland. This is like more so just straight up Ruron, really close. Which I think were said to be related to like the Xianbei, who were like a group of nomadic people in East Asia who they kind of influenced. I think it was said like a northern wheat dynasty in medieval China. They kind of helped spread Buddhism, and then eventually got to Korea, and then it got to Japan. And so here you see these people from Sequoia, Greenland, from like 4,000 years ago, so even before the Inuit, or before what people see as the modern day Eskimo or Inuit. Oh, appreciate the like whoever left it. Um, you can see they're related to Ket Siberians. Ket Siberians, this is an image of them right here. You also have Celtic, another group. I feel like I could see this guy in Japan. I don't know why. I feel like I've seen someone like that in Japan. I know some people might say, well, Asian, but I think there might be more to it. Uh, to just all these different groups. It's interesting how many different groups there are. Um, oh, definitely that for sure. Yeah, I could see a person like that. And Yakugar. And I think it's also based on the maternal haplogroup too, because if it's D, then that's another huge sign. Yeah, D for sure. Yeah, the will of D. And you can see the paternal haplogroup, I guess, went into like different areas, even Korea, and Shanbei, and sure Japan as well, somewhat. Definitely at least maternal haplogroup there, no question. The will of D. So you can see how, yeah, Karyak, Chukchi, all these different groups. It's amazing how many different groups there are. And I think that's what Kaya said is that there just hasn't been that much research on East Asian ancestry in general. Probably East Asian native, the whole block, yeah, the whole Eastern block. Um, kind of how I see it. Okay, so where was I going with this? Okay, so oh shoot, what? I don't want to lose the topic here. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the Japanese, again, you have the two main groups, the Jomon and the Yayoi, and of course the Han and Ohatsuki as well. Um, and so it kind of makes sense why the Japanese look the way they do or can look so differently. Um, Here. Yeah, so I'm gonna try so I can break it down. And oh, okay, no. I know what I was gonna do now. Okay, sorry about that. Quick tangent. Okay, so here's it was interesting how the Yayoi. I thought the match that had Yayoi in it would scale closer to this particular sample. It could be because of the Jomon sample had more admixture in it, or could have been another thing. Um, but notice this individual. She I guess she was born in what is now modern day China, Henan province. Sounds like Heian from the Heian period. And what's interesting is her DNA seems to be majority related to Europeans. And I was surprised, like, it's like, how did Gepid, Cheruski, Thurungi, Gallo-Celtic, Sequani, and Adui, how did they get to that part of the world like 5,000 years ago? Like, to me, it's like, it's a little bit weird. It's a little bit strange. But for whatever reason, there was an individual with his DNA that was there. And then probably that DNA, it's probably more so paternal, I would say, because if you look at the maternal ancestry, it becomes more clear that she was maternally East Asian for sure. And then there's the will of D again. So what I read is that this DNA, part of it entered into the Jomon, middle Jomon period, like I think it was 4,000 years ago. But it also entered mainly during the Yayoi as well. Entered Japan mainly when Jomon, Yayoi, because there's a reason why it's more common in Japan today than in China and Korea. And it says here, D4B2B became prominent in Japan primarily the Yayoi and intensified during the Kofun period. Okay, that's interesting. Intensified during the Kofun period. So it seems like it entered primarily with Yayoi, but this maternal haplogroup, there was even more of it during the Kofun. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, representing major influxes of people from the Korean Peninsula, China, mixing with the indigenous Jomon population to form modern Japanese ancestry. But then, while some D4 elements were present in Japan, and that's what I showed, because remember, I showed the will of D again. It strikes again. So you see it here, you know, even before the end of the Ice Age. there were some populations that went into that went to Japan, and then some who went to the Americas. And this maternal lineage, this D4H3 or D4H, is most prominent in Patagonia today, or what the Tlingit call Shukaka, who was also that maternal ancestor was like also found all the way in Alaska, like a long time ago. Yeah, D4H3. And so, yeah, so that is interesting though. Significant expansion of prevalence of D4B2 marks to rival these new groups. And then, yeah, because N9B seems to be another maternal haplogroup that was present in Japan. N9B, I think that's more, 'cause I think C and D are more connected to like M, and then N is like more connected actually to what eventually would be more so European lineages actually. And this could be one reason why some Japanese say that some Jomon, look more European, could be because partially that N ancestry. And so that could also be another factor, which, eventually diversified into like U um, and I think even H and other groups, a lot of them, myriads of different groups. But in this case, this individual didn't have N, she had D. So there's the will of D again. And um, and so yeah, it's interesting. And it seems like it was more present in the Yayoi than in the Han, because I was trying to see, um, like if this maternal haplogroup was more present with, like which group exactly. Um, yeah, and then yeah, see, mostly closely associated with the Yayoi people. You can kind of, break it down. Yeah, Yayoi. Yeah, and analysis of ancient Yayoi individuals has shown very high frequencies of D4, 82%. Agricultural might. Okay, so the Ohatsu carried it as well. Okay. Then let's break it down between Yayoi or Han. Okay, well, it is just showing here middle Jomon period that started to come over. Yeah, Yayoi. Then the ancient or modern Han Chinese. They had a, yeah, Northeast Asian, that's what it is. Northeast Asian. And so, during and after. For sure. There's no question. Northeast Asian. And so this was before even, because I think they say the Yellow Emperor of China was born around 2700 before Common Era, so she would even have existed even before that period. Um, and so what's interesting is like it's interesting how the Yayoi really have been present a lot longer in their own way than people realize. And so, because I know a lot of people when they think about East Asia, like they think, well, wasn't it the Han that really, or the the Han people that really were the main contributors of East Asia? But you know they have been, but that's not really the full story. And so when I think of like Itachi versus Kabuto, that's exactly what I see is that because when I think of especially now and uh, currently what's been going on in East Asia, where they have this thing called I'll just call it one Han quotation marks policy. It makes me think a lot of like Kabuto from Naruto, where he was saying, I'm perfect, Uh, I don't, uh, I don't need anything else, or you know, it's like I'm 100%, Kabuto, or I'm only, it's almost like how some of the quote unquote Han would see themselves as, or what they think Han is. And Itachi to me is more like the counter or the balancing force of that one, mindset. I'm only going to be this one perfect being that I think I am, which is not, which is really um, a prison of his own making. And Itachi is that perfect Jomon Yayoi kind of foil that says, no, you're not, you're not just. If you think just one group alone is enough to carry you through life, that's not really how it works. And so, because Itachi could understand that, having that balance of Jomon and Yayoi, he could understand I'm not perfect, I've made mistakes, but there's other people that I also believe in. And that's why, even if I fail or even if I have done some things that I wish I could have done better, that's why there's others that will come after, that have come before and that will come after, that will help. And so, and so this is where I see the Yayoi really kind of shine, or the Jomon, well, not only the Jomon, but also the Yayoi, because I think a lot of people don't really, I think maybe they struggle differentiating between Han and Yayoi. But if you know it deeply enough, you'll be able to get a better understanding of it. And then also when I think of Yayoi, I also think of like Squad Zero, like especially the Senjumaru. Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the Morrigan from Celtic folklore, and Izanami as well. Um, yeah, for sure. And so this is probably where uh, part of the elements, that's where you start to see part of the intersection, the intersection. Yeah, for sure. So and so yeah, so she she might have went to Europe, or one of the descendants might have went all the way to Europe, and that's how the connection with the Raven also occurred also with the Morrigan as well in Europe. So that probably that not only Middle Jomon but also Yayoi paternal connection. Will of D. And so yeah. And so I think that Rainbu Japanese, and this is where when Jomon and Yayoi come together with Celtic Healer, I think this is where things kind of start coming to fruition. Is that I think of Japanese anime and how all the characters look very different from each other. Um, and that's what it really is, that really, and I mentioned this in a previous video too, where I know a lot of people They get all excited. They're like, when people say Japan only for Japanese, they're like, yay! Like a lot of other foreigners would say, yay! Like only Japan for Japanese, yay, yay, yay. But I don't think the Japanese deep down really think like that. And you know why? Because it's in the anime. In the anime, if the Japanese really thought like that, if they said, yeah, you know what, Japanese only for Jomon, only for Yayoi, only for Ohatsuku, only for Han. No one else. Just those four groups, and that's it. I don't think that's how they really think. Because you look at the anime, and a lot of the characters look a lot different than the standard Jomon, Yayoi, Ohatsuku, Han. That's how I know. It's the anime. That's and Meshida, as Meshida would say, anime for them or for some of them is like their is how like the I guess the Bible is for some people. And so that's how I know. And it's a good thing. And why is it a good thing? Because, and I know some people will say, no, 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 no. But no, that there's a reason why. Because I think deep inside, and this has been, I think, a message that even the Coescar from Patagonia, which was connected to the will of D, Jomon, beginning seed of Yayoi, even before the end of the Ice Age, who went to the Americas, and also I Am the Universe, the Aikido elder. And I will show an image of him. Nomad Push interviewed him. Um, yeah, because he spoke about eternal life that some of the Chinese emperors were trying to find, and one of them tried to send envoys to Japan, to try to find it, like the Fountain of Youth. Mm. This image of some of the Patagonians, some of the Questcar, and like the Questcar talked about eternal life, about not eternal life, but about that they believed, that they would have these images of like a fantasy, but it was no longer a fantasy, it became a reality, and they became the main character, and that makes me think a lot of anime. And we also talked about they had a son and named him Rainbow, which exactly matches what I shared with the Rainbow anime characters. That's the exact same imagery. I had a son and named him Rainbow. And when I see this, I see that. I see that exact imagery. Um, Here's another group. There's different. Even the Patagonians, some of them can also look different as well. Not all look the same. Yeah, so that's another image as well. And so, yeah, so when you talk about eternal life, even after we're 10,000 years, there are still people, um, with that shared ancestry, with that D4H3 that carried on, just like Jiraiya from Naruto. And so, what am I saying? So, what I'm saying is, um, I think deep down, a lot of Japanese, they may not tell you directly, but they will show you through the anime that I think they would be fine in a world where not everyone looked the same, or that you could have many people with Japanese ancestry, but they could also be in addition to, like my Uncle Cherokee Japanese Herman says, who can still speak Japanese, who can still, do those things, but also be more than just Japanese, or be Japanese, be Jomon Yayoi, Ohatsuku, or Han, but also other groups too. And I think that's what it is. I think that's what the rainbow is, being able to see that beauty, being able to see all those elements come together, all those see like the rainbow, see the ability to bring all that ancestry together, even though it can sometimes be tough, to bring it together and to keep going. And so I think that's the main message. Also, like Shukaka, man ahead of us, and then man after us. I'm still trying to learn a wee bit of Japanese. I think it's good to. Like I know how to say I am rainbow. Watashi wa Rainbu desu. Um, so saying man after us would be Klingit Pacific Northwest would be Shukaka, man before us, man ahead of us. Man after us would be Watashi Daichi no Nochi no Otoko. And so yes, so showing the rainbow I think is a way to bring healing, to be able to break that blood quantum, as I tell my Uncle Cherokee Japanese Herman. It's almost like Ichigo when he breaks like the Hado, was it Hado 90, like, or like the well this one, but there's also like another one too. There's like another one he breaks through. Like it's more like the has like the kanji symbols, like they're yellow, and he breaks it, and it's like it's really cool. But yeah, um, I think that's the main moral of the story is to be able to see that rainbow, to be able to share that ancestry, share that not just only Jomon, Yayoi, Ohatsuku, or Han, but to also um, to share the rainbow, to share the rainbow ancestry. I think that's why Uncle Cherokee Japanese Herman calls me Celtic healer. Um, so I'll see if I can quickly show you an image here. Yeah. So this is an oops this is like just a wee image of myself with because I was trying to look at the Jomon Yayoi and the mixed groups to see kind of who I matched closely with, and I'm trying to remember who this artist was. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. It's I think it's a smile. You know, he reminds me a lot of Geen from Bleach. You know, Geen is he like people think like Geen is like the villain until the end, and he's like, no, like I really need your help, Ichigo. I know I have this creepy smile. I don't no, I think our smile is more. I think he could do it. He could probably do the Geen smile. I'm just kind of I kind of have his smile, but like just kind of like joyful, and I think he could do it better than I could. Like the Geen smile, like the Gini Chumaru. Yeah. But I just kind of laughed. Um, what is it? Shoot. What's his name? I think it's tie a thread Japanese artist. No, no. What is his name? Is it like Kenzuyu? No, 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 no. What is his name? I might have to look at the can I search with Google Lens? Yeah, Yuzuru Hanyu. Hanyu. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. Hanyu. On you. On you. I've tried. The Rainbu Japanese is trying. And then Mashida probably would say great. Like Japanese comedian. No, but yeah, so yeah, born with wings, feathers, and tying the bowstring. Yes. And so yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. I know my great grandfather Cleves also has like a nice smile as well, and I'll try to see if I can find him. Because my uncle Cherokee Japanese Herman, I told him, that but I felt like I had sometimes like a similar smile to him, and he said, "You're right." Where was it? Hmm. Yeah, I just couldn't have a laugh. It was funny. Yeah, so he's right below her, right here. I feel like I have a similar smile to him. Yeah, I think Yuzu Hanyu. Yeah. Um, it's just such a great smile in it. But yeah, no, I just wanted to share that. Just remember the rainbow, and I know it sounds silly, doesn't it? But just to know that there is a way forward, and it's like what my uncle Cherokee Japanese Herman told one of the Cherokee elders when he said he was afraid of death, and my uncle Cherokee Japanese Herman told him, we don't die, similar to the Aikido elder, and that we keep going. And that's really what the rainbow is, or what anime is. It is that kind of that symbolism of we keep going. It's not just going to be everyone's going to only look like a Jomon, or everyone's only going to look like Yayoi, or everyone's only going to look like Han or Ohatsuki. That there's going to be a lot more variation than that. That's really what the rainbow ancestry is. And I know some other Native Americans would say, like the rainbow warrior prophecy. And so that reminds me of a lot of also anime as well, like about a lot of pretty much it kind of like where it's like what the quest car said they had a son named him Rainbow. That to me is pretty much anime in a nutshell. But anyways, guys, I think I'm gonna head off for now. I just wanted to make this video quickly for you guys. Anyways, I hope you guys take care. Hope you guys have a good rest of the evening, and bye for now.